In this short video, I want to say a little bit about what I see as being the value of your artistic voice. The starting point here is that we're all born, in a sense, equally unequal. We've all got things that we are good at and things that we are, less good at, and we all occupy our own space on Earth. So we have differences. And the key takeaway from this video, I hope, is that you feel empowered to lean in to what makes you special, to make the best of your individual set of possibilities. And you will do this by not emulating other people, but just by really leaning in to what makes you, you. My feeling is that if you do this, then you'll be happier, more productive, and ultimately you'll be a better and more valuable artist to society. My thinking on this subject has really shifted over the last few years. It's certainly not reflective of the way in which I thought until relatively recently. But a couple of really big things have led to me developing this, some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you in this video. And the first of those things is social media, and the other big shift is AI. And I say that my ideas have developed only recently. I do think that what I'm going to say has probably always been true, but I'm just being honest about the fact that they hadn't been at the top of my mind until relatively recently. But those two big things, social media and generative AI, have led me to rethink what I see as being the importance of art to society and the role that artists play. What I'm talking about here really is the relationship between information and experience. And this connection, which I think previously I took for granted, has become challenged in two different ways. The first big challenge came from social media, and against the backdrop of a kind of denigration of our institutions and of expertise. We've got this situation now where people with the biggest megaphones can simply assert their version of the truth and decry anything they don't like as being fake news. The second challenge comes from the genuine technological advancement of generative AI, or AI in general. Now, this isn't a polemic against AI. I'm really enthusiastic about artificial intelligence and the role that it can play in the future. I'm excited to be alive right now because there's so much that's changing, there's so much that's happening. But there are big challenges that come with artificial intelligence, and I think as artists we start off by figuring out if it's something that we want to use. Then we figure out how to use it, and it's only later down the line that we really figure out what the implications of our use of it is for society and for culture in general. And this is a kind of experiment that's being played out across economies and societies as a whole. But there's one thing that I really encourage you to understand from this, which is that it's a remarkably powerful technology, but at its best, at its very best, what AI offers is information without the thrill of experience. And that's a fundamental difference between it and the way in which we relate to the world and the way in which we relate to information, because we experience it directly. AI works like a kind of statistical model. It's adept at guessing what the next word in a sentence might be, or the next note in a composition, or the next pixel on an image might be. But it has no fundamental understanding of what it's doing. It has as much experience and understanding, as much of a conception of what it's doing, as a caged parrot squawking pieces of 8 has understanding of pirates. And the thing about art is that it works in a fundamentally different way. Art is about human perception and feeling, and that connection is an anchor. So it anchors the kind of information of the art to the experience of the art, and it does that in a twofold way. There's a reciprocal relationship between the viewer and the artist, which is mediated by the artwork. The viewer perceives the painting, or the composition, or the novel, or the TV show, whatever that thing might be, and it sparks something emotionally in them. And the corollary of that, the reciprocal element to that, is the experience, the emotion, the feeling of the artist who created the thing that the viewer is seeing. There's a connection between the two things. The more you lean into what makes you special, the more particular that connection will be for you in your art. And that's an edge over not just, other things that someone could be looking at and other things that we could be spending our attention on, but it's also your fundamental edge over AI, and it's also your authenticity in relation to lots of inauthentic expression that's otherwise happening on social media. Now, I said earlier on that this was a realization that's come to me gradually, and I think that in part that's because I spent 2 decades working in universities where there is a, coming from post-structuralist philosophy, there's a kind of suspicion of authenticity. If you studied at an art school in the UK relatively recently, you probably had to read Roland Barthes' The Death of the Author or something by Foucault, probably still on the reading lists. Well, now instead of The Death of the Author, we've got this really interesting experiment going on with AI, which is like zombie authorship or zombie fiction. We've got art without artists, photography without photographers, music without musicians. Well, what does that really mean? This is art with no point of origin. This is art shorn of experience. And I also noticed that however much we embraced those post-structural ideas and that kind of suspicion about how important the individual human creator might be in relation to what they do, the art market never behaved in that way. It never lost its interest in provenance and authenticity. That stuff has always been both culturally and commercially valuable, even while it's been held under a degree of, I suppose, critical suspicion within the academy. Now, actually, I think that most of the important functions of being an artist are predicated on reality and experience. Your gift as an artist is to be able to experience the world around you, and occasionally, perhaps even only every now and then, to get a slipping glimpse of something different, to develop a kind of drop of insight. All of those individual drops of insight over the course of your life, and every other artist who's working in this way, forms a kind of reservoir of human potential. You are developing, through your art, in society as a whole, the capacity to imagine alternative futures, to be able to see things differently and to think, what if? And that kind of faculty is fundamental to one of our most fundamental human traits, which is empathy. It's the ability to see things from somebody else's point of view. That's reliant on a degree of imagination, a degree of what if I was in that person's shoes. Now contrast that kind of ecstatic elasticity of mind that human creativity generates, which goes from witness and experience and truth to what if, to glimpse other possibilities, and compare that with AI. There is no comparison. What AI does is shuffle around existing fragments. It's learning of what's come in the past and to create new patterns. There's nothing genuinely new about it. It's only if there's a human author driving the ship that happens. And I think AI can be a really useful tool for creatives to use. As I said, this isn't a polemic against a really exciting technology. Of course, there's something else that a lot of artists do, something that I've been guilty of probably for most of my career, if I'm being frank, which is the desire to emulate other people's success and not leaning into what makes you special and not leaning into the power of your own artistic voice. And if you do that, then of course, in a way you're functioning like a bad AI. So double down, lean into what makes you special, make the best of the possibilities that are before you and that only you can do. Now, what I want to do is, some people might think that I'm being kind of nostalgic or that this is an argument for human superiority, and it isn't. I want to imagine, in part because this technology is moving so quickly, I'm recording this in 2025 and maybe in a few years' time we've got artificial general intelligence and a kind of AI that's got capabilities beyond what I can currently imagine. So let's imagine that. Let's take the challenge and imagine an AI that's got this incredible capacity for creativity, an AI that can surpass human creativity. What then? Would everything that I've been saying merely seem like some kind of nostalgic assertion of some kind of biological superiority? Actually, I don't think it would. And there are several reasons for that. 3 reasons, in fact. First of all, in order for humanity to get its collective head around what an incredible, upsetting climacteric the invention of such an entity would be, we would have to have an incredible flexibility of mind in order to embrace the new opportunities of this brave new world and not lie back and go the way of the Neanderthals. We'd have to employ our creativity to figure out what meaning and value is in the world for us. The second reason is, imagine that, by way of analogy, imagine a blue whale learned to speak English or Mandarin. Would it stop singing? I don't think that it would, because those forms of expression are not whale forms of expression, and whale song works in the ocean that it lives in. My argument is not an argument for human superiority, it's an argument for human necessity. Art that's made by humans is needed by humans to make sense of our situation and the way in which we experience the world. It's part of what draws together the kind of collective consensual reality that I think until relatively recently we lived in, and I hope that at some point we will again. And the third reason, which might sound a little bit flippant, is this. Because of the enormous energy demands of artificial intelligence, a super powerful AI would make supermassive energy demands, and it might very well be beyond the universe's energy budget to achieve that point. Even if it isn't, who's paying the electricity bill? It will still be in the service of us. So I think there are lots of reasons not to despair of the future, and as I said, I hope actually to be excited about the future. And I would say this to you, I think the role of human creativity has actually never been more urgent. Even if you're not getting great feedback from the world, you are special through being an artist. Your creativity really does matter, and it really does make a difference. Make the most of your possibilities and lean in to your authentic artistic voice.